2024, and what a wonderful way to begin the new year, to dive into Sri Jaiva Dharma. So we'll have a kirtan and then we'll come to our Jaiva Dharma study. Nama Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine Nama Vishnu Padaya Gaura Prasthaya Bhutale Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyana Deshaviti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ramo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Jai Gaura Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai. Oh Jaya Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachi Nandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhabika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nityananda Rai Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Shri Brishabala Nandini Bajeshwari Radharani Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Surabhi Kunj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaurikishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Baladevi Dibhushan Gaudi Vedantacharya Ki Jai Jai Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sigahosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Shri Gauda Bhakta Binda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dwadasa Varnatmika Shri Brajamandal Ki Jai Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Brinda Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Purnamasi Devi Yogamaya Maharani Ki Jai Gopishwa Mahadev Ki Jai Sarva Bigna Vanashakari Shri Nashingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakta Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Chari Sampradaya Ki Jai Charidam Ki Jai Charya Charya Ki Jai Akara Matraj Shri Chaitanya Mat Ki Jai Shri Keshav Ji Gaudiya Mat Ki Jai Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Gauda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagat Vakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaud Premanande Hari Hari Bol Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Priya Sarupe Daita Sarupe Prema Sarupe Sahajabi Rupe Nijana Rupe Prabhueka Rupe Tatana Rupe Swavilasa Rupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuranavartino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Tudikatamba Sadipita Sada Hridare Kandare Spratu Vasachinandanaha Yam Pravajantamanapetyam Apetikritiam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti tam mayatayo tarva vinidustam sarvabhutam hridim munimanatoshmi bhaktiya vihina aparada lakshay shiptasya karmadi tarangamadye kripa tvam sharanam prapana brinde namaste charanarvindam bhajami radham aravinda netram smarami radham madhurashmitasyam vadami radham karuna baradram tato mamanasti katina kapi Tavaivasmi najivami tvaivina iti vignaya radhe tvam naimam charantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandava pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And again, I'm offering to Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidanandanamane Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the assembled Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Avancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhabevacha Patidanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnave Namo Namaha. So coming to our Jaiva Dharma. So yesterday we had the glorious disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and we heard so many truths that are very relevant, in fact, to our Jaiva Dharma appreciation with the purification of the Brahman caste, etc., and the discussions about um, Brahmanism and casteism. So we see in the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, just as his noble father, they took great measures to purify those discrepancies that were overlapping into the Vaishnava mood. Those Brahmanas were considering themselves Vaishnavas, just like we see in this chapter 5 we're studying, how Davidas, he's thinking that actually he's a Vaishnava, but Lahari is having to purify that misconception. So we'll come to that in a minute. So we'll read the first 5 verses of the Falshruti. Prithivite yatakata dharma nama chale, bhagavata kai sava paripurna chale.
As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
So I thought today I would read this translation of the verse that we're quoting here each time, this 112, just to completely set us in track and also to have an opportunity to hear the beautiful words of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this verse, Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam shatam. So I'm going to read the translation. This perfect scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Srila Vyasadeva from 4 original verses, describes the most elevated and kind-hearted devotees and completely rejects the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity. So the most kind-hearted devotees, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, even though he was very often condemned for his directness and his sharpness on stopping appropriate Siddhantas being propagated. But in the end, we understand his enormous compassion that he would go to that degree to protect this Vaishnava Siddhanta, this Tattva Siddhanta, this Jaiva Dharma. So this verse is saying exactly what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says all the time. So the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity, dharma, artha, karma, and moksha. We've seen in our study that constantly the personality Prem Das Babaji, Vaishnav Das, and Lahari Mahashay now are going to be cutting away at these principles, these purusarthas that were pretty much established all the way through Bharatvash, where people considered this is the path of religion. But only when um, Narad came and enlightened Vyasadeva was he able to actually write this Srimad Bhagavatam in a very pure way. Previously, we've said many times, he was focusing on Gyan Kand and Karma Kand. But by the mercy of Narad, he had that Samadhi vision in chapter 7 of the first canto, and he was able to see the Vrindavan pastimes. And once he had darshan of the Vrindavan pastimes, then the whole magnitude of what he was undertaking became even more clear to describe the personal form of the Lord, the Leelas of the Lord. He never had appreciated how Mother Yashoda had bound Krishna. This is breaking all the boundaries of Aishwarya Gyan that were present and that had been present since the previous day of Lord Brahma. So this is revolutionary what Mahaprabhu has come to give. We have to appreciate the immensity of Mahaprabhu's teachings and what a complete turnaround they've offered to sincere devotees, sadhaks, to achieve such a high end. So, Srila Vyasadeva, from 4 original verses, describes the most elevated and kind hearted devotees and completely rejects the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity. What's that? Saravai pumsam puro dharma, yato bhakti arhoiksaje, ahoitiki apratiyate, ye atma suprasidati. This is saying to satisfy the soul. What is the religion for all humanity? This adhoksage, worshipping the inconceivable Supreme Lord in an unmotivated and uninterrupted way. This will bring satisfaction to the soul. This is what he's going to say in the next chapter, yes, chapter 2 of Bhagavatam. It propounds the highest truth, reality distinguished from illusion, for the spiritual welfare of all, even though it might pinch. What is the pinching? The pinching is we have to relinquish our various material attachments. Principally, the subtle attachments is what we're talking about now in our Jaiva Dharma reading. These subtle attachments of reputation, of caste. If you're born in a Brahmin family, you can have the impression almost like you're born with a degree, so to speak. You get that much extra mileage in any of your material activities because you have the stamp of Brahmana caste on your forehead. So, therefore, many doors will open just to Brahmanas. But this is false, this is cheating, because in so many instances, especially in this age of Kali, the Brahmana is not living up to the standards of what is Brahminical behavior. The principle of Brahminical behavior is to be without any material um, desires and any attachments, to be liberated completely from that. The royalty, the Kshatriya class, would regularly donate so many luxuries to the Brahmins, cows, etc., villages, but the Brahmins would just leave them. They weren't interested. That wasn't what they were come to this world for. They had come to teach or to act as the priestly class, and this was their function, and they were happy doing that. They didn't want to acquire material assets. This was previously, but then in this age of Kali, everything has become degenerated, and people think that you can become happy from economic development. It teaches pure bhakti, the highest principle of eternal religion, and it uproots the threefold miseries of the conditioned jivas, awarding them Krishna Prem. Those threefold miseries, adibhutic, adidaivik, adiatmic, those 3 miseries that afflict all across the board. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is doing the same as Jaiva Dharma will do. This is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur has quoted it in this first verse of the Palshruti, because it's got a similar potency. It's contending with the same um, uh, difficulties, material um, difficulty of the conditioned soul, and it's going to purify in the same way. So we should look at this Jaiva Dharma similarly to the Bhagavatam. And it uproots the threefold miseries of the conditioned jivas, awarding them Krishna Prem, the ultimate benediction of pure love of God. Yes, in the Bhagavatam, we have these five uh, Panchadya chapters, the Rasalila chapters in the 10th canto, showing us the nature of the love between Radha and Krishna. And if the sadhak takes very seriously this service to this bhakti shriyam, service to Radha and Krishna's unnata ujjvala ras, service to their prem, then he can achieve this highest excellence of prem. Perhaps not in one lifetime, perhaps 2 or 3 lifetimes, but nevertheless, he's on track for that. Because one life or 2 lifetimes, in a sense of achieving such an incredible goal, is actually minimal like that. We've been millions of lives or billions of lives in this material world. What is another 1 or 2 lifetimes as a Vaishnava practicing, as a sadhak, a pure sadhak? Those eager to hear this beautiful Bhagavatam under the guidance of the person Bhagavat in a subordinate attitude of service. We are under the guidance of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Gokishodas Babaji, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. We are under their guidance completely. Unless we connect with this current, this Dara, then we cannot expect to have any success or auspiciousness in life. Connecting to this current is the principle, and this is all Guru Tattva. Without connecting in that sense, then we are disassociating ourselves from that Gaudiya lineage. It's essential to do like that. In a submissive attitude of service, can at once capture Sri Krishna in their hearts. Therefore, there is no need for any scripture other than Srimad Bhagavatam. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is reiterating exactly the same words here. He's talking about this cheating religion all the way through these verses, right? And he's saying if you don't read Jaiva Dharma, then you can never attain success. It's the same if you don't read the Srimad Bhagavatam. So understand the parallels here. Chale dharma charikara satya dharma mati chaturvarga vyajitara nitya prema gati.
One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and observe his mind and true dharma.
This is what we're hearing about all the time. We're hearing about this yoga ladder, right? This is what we heard in the second chapter and the third chapter, coming from karma and then gyan and then the impersonal yogis and then bhakti. So this ladder is essential to appreciate and understand. And it's not that we reject the lower rungs, because the lower rungs are for people of that adhikar, and they must actually go through those. So we should never be looking down on that. We should understand this is the adhikar, and we must very carefully go through these stages, these steps, in order to achieve Shuddha Bhakti. And because even when we get to the stage of Bhakti, that's just the beginning. Then we have to go through different stages within the Bhakti process to come to Bhakti Ras. So there's stages all the time.
In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of Nitya Prem.
So he's saying it again and again and again, but we need to hear it repeatedly because these conceptions are incredibly deep within us. Like, for example, in Swagaloka. In Swagaloka, that is the Bogayoni, the species of pleasure, but they follow Dharma to the letter. absolutely rigidly they follow Dharma. They must, otherwise, they couldn't conduct their huge services to this material world. The rain has to fall in season, the sun has to um, travel his orbit regularly, the winds have to blow, etc. These are dharmic activities that the devas perform. So all of the lives of the devas are very much dharmically orientated. And when they transgress from dharma, like we hear so many stories of Indra enjoying with Gautam Rishi's wife, for example, the consequences are immediate and so severe. He was cursed to have vaginas all over his body. And then he pleaded so um, much that he had them transformed into eyes. That's why we see Indra full of eyes on his body. So there's transgression of Dharma, but nevertheless, the razor edge reality that if you transgress, this is going to be the consequence. Whereas in this material realm, it's not so apparent. It is if you understand the nature and working of karma. If you understand your own karma, whichever suffering I'm going through, we must know irrevocably is only nothing short of a result of my own previous karmas. Everything that is going on. Krishna isn't about to make somebody um, uh, suffer without any purpose to that, except in certain instances to demonstrate the speciality of those personalities, like the Pandavas. This wasn't their karma that they were relegated to the forest for 12 years, 13 years. This was the Leela that Krishna had arranged for them. The Pandavas are Nitya Siddha Parikars. So that was not their karma that they underwent, those years of tribulation. But for us in this material world, any type of um, difficulty is only caused by our. And if, once we realize that, then tattenu kampam susamikshamana, then we can accept it and tolerate it and work through it with patience and humility because you can't avoid it. The laws of nature are categoric. In other words, oh, you read all that. You read the whole thing. Amitva mimam
Amitvam
sabrame
sabrame
nija
nija
chara
chara
buddhi
buddhi
nirvishesha
nirvishesha
brahma
brahma
jnane
jnane
nahi
nahi
chita
chita
shuddhi.
shuddhi. Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for nirvishesh
Even
brahmagyan.
if you catapult yourself into the nirvishesh brahm, even if you perform so many different sorts of yogas or different um, meditations, etc., and like I've read in the Christian mystics, for example, they do merge into that Brahman like atmosphere. And it's totally wonderful. It's warm, it's loving, it's everything we could consider is like being enlightened. But there's no relationship there. There's no sense of duality. It's just singular myself and my happiness and my relief from the miseries and pushings of this conditioned life. This is all it is. It's like sort of banging your head against the wall, and then you stop banging and you think, well, now I'm happy. You're no longer banging your head against the wall. But where is the activity in that? We know, and we have to, if we don't know already, then we have to inquire about the nature of love. It's the nature of love that everyone is seeking, this loving relationship. And we have to ardently aspire for that if we haven't already connected in a loving atmosphere. There's a beautiful verse, Yadrichi. Let me see if I can find it. And it's saying very beautifully. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to love this verse. I was just looking at it today. 283 describes what I'm saying. it's saying in principle, oh no, it's a different one. Okay, I'll come back to it. But it's saying that one must be neither disgusted with the material world, nor I have to find this verse because I just had it today. 230. Here. So this is saying Yadrichaya matkatado jata shradas tuya puman. This is saying, if by good fortune one has developed faith in hearing the discussions of my tattva, spiritual truths, and lila, pastimes, and is not excessively attached to or disgusted by worldly things. So neither one or the other. If you're excessively disgusted, it's like you become like a voidist, like yogi. And if you're still attached, you're going to have difficulty. So there's a middle road. There's a middle road. There's an ancient um, idea that you don't have the string too tight because it will break, and you don't have it too loose because it won't play. So you have to find the harmony within the middle. This is like a Buddhist expression, but it works for our devotional service also. We must find that middle road, not extremes. If we go to extremes, we can be extremes in our practicing. Of course, we want to become more um, uh, devotionally involved, but always with the balance of love. This is the topic that I'm talking about. If you become extremely um, nihilistic almost, then you're not going to connect with people in general. We said the other day how the word religion comes from the Latin religio, or binding. So this is like sambandha. We've talked a lot about sambandha gyan, relationship between ourselves and Krishna. What is that relationship? That relationship is one of love. That's the relationship. Love is two. There must be a subject and an object. It must be you and God. And what is the nature of your relationship? Not that I always have my hand out. Most religions are just like that. Give us our daily bread. I'll go to the church and I'll hope that this happens to me. This is called karma yoga. This is not, this is expecting some result. But that true relationship is in the core of the heart with our pure transcendental spiritual body, able to serve the transcendental personalities of Vrindavan. That's our true relationship. And if we go into the Nirvishesh Brahm, we've lost it. Hivichitrata hina
Hinahale
hale
nirvishesha
nirvishesha
hoy,
hoy
kala
kala
se matulya seya
samatulya
aprakritanai. The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental.
because they're not transcendental. How can they think Krishna's transcendental?
Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm.
Says so much. There's so much packed into each of these verses that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving us. But we've spoken about it many times. We'll keep going now.
Kande gyana hoye dharma ache sunishchaya, prakrita haile kabu aprakrita naya. Such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected. It is prakrita, materialistic, and should never be given credence as aprakrita dharma.
So this is basically what we're reading about in all these chapters. These conceptions of rejecting our previous attached reputations, um, way of life, etc., particularly in the caste area, right from the very beginning. Vaishnava Das came in as a sannyasi Thakur, and he was saying himself when he saw that devotee dancing that because of his um, misconception about his own identity, he was unable to connect with that Vaishnava because he felt so much proud of his position as a Paramahamsa sannyasi. So it was restricting him. And then we have exactly the same with Lahari Mahashay. He asked about Sandhya Vandanam. Sandhya Vandanam is the chanting of the Gayatri mantras, basically, the three junctions of the day. So he was asking about this, and he was absolutely convinced that this is the purest path that one can follow. And his son also is exactly the same. His son, Davidas, is shocked when Hari Mahashai says, no, this is actually not because they're trying to bring Lahari Mahashai home. And he's saying, but you're not Vaishnavas. And Davidas is quite shocked by this because they are considering that they are. They're Brahmanas and they worship actually Shakti, they worship Panchapashana. They worship Ganesh, they worship Shiva, they worship Surya Dev, they worship Durga Ma, and they throw Vishnu in there as well. They worship all five, Panchapashana. So they're considering that they are devotionally inclined, but they're not because their devotion has a price tag on it. They want something, which is called karma. They want some return. And if they want some karma, how can they ever be liberated from this karmic cycle? They'll just become more and more involved in it. But it's very, very deep. It's so deep. So we should appreciate what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving here. He's giving the nature of this land and these personalities who inhabit here. There's so many that are considering, yes, I am Brahman. Yes, I worship Durga Ma. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, particularly we heard yesterday, took great pains to actually purify these misconceptions. And he made a lot of progress because many Brahmin young men came to his flag, to his camp, and they would in turn preach the same principles, and they would be listened to by those who were considering themselves as Brahmins, and then they themselves now considered themselves as Vaishnavas. So they were able to convince them and bring them into a proper conception. So this is still very prevalent throughout India. So on Saturday, I spoke the translation of this beautiful bhajan. I'm going to translate, chant this again, and then we'll go on to page 78, which is where we're up to. So yes, the pastime so far, just to refresh, is that Devidas and Shambhu have come to take Lahari back, and Lahari now is in a position where he was in the previous chapter, seeking instruction from Vaishnavadas. Now Devidas is hearing these instructions from Larihya what he's learnt from Vaishnavadas. So see the consistency that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting this scripture. Very beautiful. So yes, these Vaishnavas had come, and they were from Katwa, and they were kirtaniyas. So they sang this beautiful bhajan. O Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandra, O Prabhu Nityananda, O Gadadhar, O Advaita Chandra, Gaura's Bhaktas. O Vaishnava Thakur, you are a boundless ocean of mercy. Please bestow your profuse mercy on a sinful creature like me. O Master, please be merciful and deliver this person intoxicated with the pride of high birth, education, wealth, and attachment to wife, children, and family members. That's the crux of it. We've just been talking all about this. This is called samsara. And it's interesting, the verse before, O Vaishnava Thakur. They are the person who is a Vaishnava will never consider himself a Vaishnava. He always considers himself to be the servant of the Vaishnavas. Any sincere personality, sadhak, is not going to be thinking, yes, I am a Vaishnava. He's going to be thinking others are far more advanced than me. And this way he can actually make his progress because this ghastly demon of pride, once that comes in, then That's those pride comes in along with envy. And because envy is crackling in this whole material world, there's nothing but envy here. It's just in all the atmosphere totally. And pride is a part of that envy, those two qualities. Please purify me of my lust for women and wealth and the desire for prestige. This is my prayer. Enormous prayer. These are, monumental. If we can be purified of these traits within our natures, we will be relieved of a greatest burden. O servant of Sri Krishna, please be merciful and give me a taste for Sri Nam and compassion for all jivas, and let me delight in the association of Vaishnavas. The shade of your lotus feet is my only hope, my sole refuge in life and death. The shade of the Vaishnava's lotus feet. He's praying to his guru. He's praying to the topmost Vaishnava guru. When this bhajan came to an end, the Vaishnavas sang a prayer composed by Kalidas Lahari Mahashay, which was charming and full of poetic sentiment. Actually, this is a beautiful bhajan to sing. Miche Maya Vashay Samsara Sagare Padia. I don't know the melody just straight off. I'll just speak the translation. I fell into the ocean of samsara and became enslaved in futile activities by the influence of Maya. You were merciful and delivered me by giving me the shade of your lotus feet. Always a mood of gratitude. We have great gratitude for the Vaishnava's kripa and mercy. If we're feeling any progress, it's only due to the Vaishnava's mercy, nothing more. O Vaishnava Thakur, please hear me. I have surrendered my head at your feet. Please dispel my misery. Yes, Sharanagat is there. Pride of caste is a terrible hell. That's exactly what we've been talking about. Pride of caste. And they don't even know it's a terrible hell. It's a terrible hell. Why? Because it's planted firmly on the material platform. The caste is only relevant for this one particular birth. It's not that the soul is a Brahmin. The soul is not a Kshatriya or a Vaishnava or Shudra. Naham Viprana Chandrapati Vaishnava Shudra, Naham Vani Na Chakravat Ishtu. Kintu Pradyan Nikhila Paramananda Puramridabda Gopi Bharatu Kamalayo Das Dasanudas. This is the identity of the soul. Pride of caste is a terrible hell. Material learning is but an aspect of ignorance. That's not often what we hear, is it? We don't hear that regularly. I teach in our Gurukul across the river, and they have to go and attend all the various curriculum, government exams, etc. But they are knowing that this material education is not going to lead them to any transcendental place at all. And actually, it's very dangerous because it can just encourage you more into the material society. That's what it'll do. What is the value? Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he said directly, he said material education can be an impediment for your devotion to flourish. Because material education, then you'll start to have the misconception that you know something. You'll get an exam paper, it says, yes, you've passed. You've got your PhD, you've got your master's, you've got this and that and the other. Oh, yes, I am very intelligent. But actually, we're not intelligent, just like Sanatana Goswami when he came in front of Mahaprabhu. And he said, everyone is telling me that I'm intelligent, but I don't even know who I am. Mahaprabhu said, very good. Jivara Sarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. This is what he said to him. So this material intelligence is not a plus or a bonus. Of course, we have to be intelligent to take the right path. It's not that we go to sleep on these matters. Our intelligence should be sharp and clear and crystal. Our consciousness should be aware and acute of all the aspects of this world that we live in. But when it's talking material intelligence here, it's talking about like university degrees, etc. It's talking about what the drunkards of material society consider is a healthy educational program. And certainly here in Bharatvarsh in India, there are more schools now than, you know, they're all over. They're just springing up everywhere. They've got this um, ridiculous focus that we have to get an education. And then what happens when you've got the education? It's like there's an inflation of masters in the world. There's master's degrees everywhere. You can't even get a job as a sweeper, right? You can be a master's in whatever, and you can't even get a job as a sweeper. So what is the value of it? But the biggest hindrance is that it creates pride. This is the biggest hindrance. Material education, and if you've got any acclaim given by the material world for your elevated status in the educational academic world, then that is only going to be obstructing. Of course it'll be obstructing. Unless you're using that, if you're like an architect and you've learned the science of building, etc., or if it's some practical application of what you've studied. But if it's just something ephemeral and has no real meaning in life except to give you extra pride, what is its value? Pride of caste is a terrible hell. Material learning is but an aspect of ignorance. Ignorance because we don't know who we are, really, like Sanatana Goswami. Please purify me and deliver me to the feet of Nitai. Please extinguish my blazing agony. Heno Nitai Bine Bai Radha Krishna Paitenai. That without taking shelter of the lotus feet of Nitai, how can you come to Radha and Krishna? Nitai's kripa must be essential. By your mercy, may the holy names of Sri Yugal appear on my tongue, and may Sri Radhe Sham appear in my heart. This is the prayer of Kalidas. So Kalidas has written this prayer. He himself is appreciating the terrible hell of his caste, this Brahminical caste, and we're seeing it clearly in reflected now in his son, Davidas. So see the continuity coming through from the first chapter to this chapter, chipping away, purifying these material purusartas, which we've talked about at the very beginning of the Falshruti. This is what it's doing. Singing this bhajan together, all of them became maddened with joy. At the end, they repeated the line, Jaguka Sri Radhe Sham. May Sri Radhe Sham appear in my heart, again and again, and began to dance exuberantly. As they continued to dance, a few Bhavuk Vaishnavas fell unconscious. An extraordinary atmosphere developed, and as Devidas witnessed all this, he began to think that his father was deeply immersed in the pursuit of spiritual truth, and that it would be difficult to take him home. So we're seeing through the eyes of Devidas these extraordinary behaviors of the Vaishnavas. It was about midnight when the meeting broke up. Everyone exchanged Dandavat pranams and returned to their respective places. Devidas and Shambhunath took permission from their father and returned to their lodgings. All of the implications here that they paid pranams to each other before they left, and they maintained their devotional mood by offering dandavats to each other. And then they, again, I mentioned previously, they returned to their respective places. They didn't go home, they went to their places where they were resting. And then Devidas and Shambhunath, they took permission from their father and returned to their lodgings. Again, this respectful mood of the culture. They took permission from their father. I'm saying this, I'm looking at a Indian Brahmin in front of me who doesn't think, he thinks these things are just natural. But in the Western world, these things are unheard of. You don't take permission from your mother and father in all sorts of instances, mostly in the Western world. Most of the relationships are fractured and broken because of so much mixed marriages, etc. So much dissension is there. It's very hard to find a solid married unit, a family that remains together. It's an exception. It's not the norm. So therefore, the respect of the children is reduced towards the parents because they've seen them breaking that relationship. That relationship is broken out of impatience with each other. One of the partners wasn't supplying the other with sufficient sense gratification. Therefore, they decide to separate. So this means they haven't honored from the very beginning. So the children can sense this. They can sense there's some fault here. So why should they pay attention to the parents? The following day, when they had finished their meal, Devi and Shambhu went to the kutia of Lahari Mahashay. Davidas Vidyanratna offered pranams to Lahari Mahashay and said, Dear Father, I have one request to make of you. Please come and reside in our house at Shantipur. We will all be very happy and serve you at home. We can all arrange we also we can also arrange for a solitary kutia for you, if you give your permission. Lahari Mahashay replied, It is a good idea, but I would not get the type of sadhu sangha in Shantipur that I get here. Devi, you know the people of Shantipur. They are so godless and so fond of slandering others, that a man can hardly be satisfied to live there. Granted, there are many brahmanas there, but their intelligence has become crooked by their association with shallow-minded, materialists like the weavers. So he's giving us the history here. Fine garments, grandiose words, and blasphemy of Vaishnavas are the three characteristics of the people of Shantipur. The descendants of Advaita Prabhu have undergone so much trouble there that they have become almost inimical to Mahaprabhu by such negative association. You should therefore grant that I may stay here in Godrum. That is my desire. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving us some um, historical context here, that in the time when he was writing this, Shantipur was like this. Actually, he's writing this 300 years before, just after Mahaprabhu has left. And how quickly that vicious demon of Kali Maharaj has just enveloped the people's consciousnesses, has come in. It's like it's described, as soon as Krishna leaves this planet, what's that? Krishna Swadharma Bhajate Dharma Janati. That Purana code denoted. This Bhagavat Purana has arisen just after the departure of Krishna for his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. So when Krishna goes to his own abode, those principles of religiosity also go with him. We see in the um, pastime of Yudhisthira Maharaj, when he's waiting for Arjun to return from Dwarka, and he starts to see many anomalies. Jackals are howling, cows are crying. He can hear rattling chains of like wheels going around in the ether, and all kinds of inauspicious omens are there. And he's understanding, yes, now Kali Maharaj is going to fall. Kali Maharaj is just waiting for Krishna to leave. Parikshit, he chastised him. But as soon as Krishna leaves with his associates, with the Yadus, then Kali Maharaj enters so strongly. So we see this. Even when the Mahabhagavats, when they leave, we were talking yesterday about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. As soon as he left the planet, what did his wonderful disciples do? So many of them began to fight with each other over properties. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was lamenting, if I could sell if I could sell this property of Bag Bazaar and take all the marble off the wall and print books, I would. He wasn't impressed with that opulence at all. And what were the devotees thinking? They actually wanted that opulence. So they fought about it. It was a tragic end. So that was like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was holding back the influence of Kali Maharaj in the consciousnesses of those people. But as soon as he left, then Kali Maharaj walked straight in. Same with Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He was also holding everything back. Then as soon as he left, all kinds of anomalies came into the movement of this Krishna conscious ISKCON society. While he was there, he was keeping everything under control. um, Fine garments, grandiose words, and blasphemy of Vaishnavas are the three characteristics of the people of Shantipur. The descendants of Advaita Prabhu have undergone so much trouble there that they have become almost inimical to Mahaprabhu by such negative association. You should therefore grant that I may stay here in Godrum. That is my desire. Godrum is right. Even today, Godrum, just for your information, is like off the track, so to speak. It's like really and truly, we're living almost in an atmosphere of 200 or 300 years ago. There's very, very little material development on this side of the Jalangi or this side of the Ganga. It's really very, very simply arranged here on this side. And interestingly, even the electricity is like half the cost of what it is across the river. In Mayapur, I think it's like 8 or 9 rupees a unit. Here it's like 3 or 4 rupees a unit. So somehow or other, Godrum has maintained its quietness as far as the increase in materialism is concerned. Nobody wants to build it up particularly. There's almost no Westerners living on this side. Just one down by the river, Ram Sharda. Davidas said, "Dear father, what you say is true, but why must you have anything to do with the people of Shantipur? Stay in a solitary place and spend your days cultivating your religious practices, such as Sandhya Vandana. A Brahman's daily work is also his Nitya Dharma, and it is the duty of a great soul like yourself to be absorbed in that way." Ha! Now, this is like a red flag for Lahari Mahashay. Now he can start purifying Davidas's misconception about Sandhya Bandhana, which he had had in the previous chapter. Becoming somewhat grave, Lahari Mahashay said, "My dear son, those days are no more." Becoming somewhat grave, this means he's going to speak to him from the heart. He's going to speak to him truthfully. Now that I've lived for a few months in the association of sadhus and have heard Sri Gurudev's instructions, my understanding has changed dramatically. I understand now that what you refer to as Nitya Dharma is really Naimitic Dharma. The only Nitya Dharma is Hari Bhakti. Sandhya Vandana and other such practices are in reality Naimitic Dharma. Davidas said, "Father, I have never seen or heard of such an explanation in any Shastra. Is Sandhya Vandana not Hari Bhajan? If it is Hari Bhajan, then it is Nitya Dharma. Is there any difference between Sandhya Vandana and the practices that constitute Vaidhi Bhakti, such as Shravan and Kirtan?" Devidas is shocked. He's shocked that his father's saying like this. Lahari said, "The Sandhya Vandana that is included in Karma Kanda is significantly different from Vaidhi Bhakti. Sandhya Vandana and other such activities are performed in the Karma Kanda system in order to obtain liberation. We could say liberation at best, because usually it's performed to get remunerated materially, not even liberation. However, activities of Hari Bhajan, such as Shravan and Kirtan, have no ulterior motive. Yes, the real Shravan and Kirtan is not asking to be more involved in this material world with more material wealth, etc. It wants the opposite. The Shastras describe the results of hearing, chanting, and other limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti, but this is just to interest people who would otherwise not be inclined to perform those activities. This is a big point that he's going to bring out often, that why have the Mahajans instructed the path of Karmakand? And it's because they have appreciated there are people who don't have the adhikar yet for Gyan Kand. And the path of Karma Kand, working for remuneration, praying to God, oh, give me this, give me that, give me that. This is karma yoga, when you want something. But doing like that is okay, because that can bring you to a place of not wanting to ask the Lord for anything, to nishkarm. That will bring you to that stage. And then from there, it can come to Gyan Yoga. And then from Gyan Yoga, it can come to Bhakti Yoga. This is the karmic ladder that we've already gone through. We've already heard this. I said already today, from karma to Gyan, then to either Astanga Yoga or, if we're fortunate, to Bhakti. This is the path. The worship of Sri Hari has no fruit other than the service of Sri Hari. That is the beauty. When you worship the Lord without any expectation, there is such an exhilaration in the heart that surpasses any other type of attraction or bliss conceivable. That is Shuddha Bhakti. And that is what we are desiring, which has nothing to do with this material world at all. It's complete. It's on the it's relating to our transcendental soul. Not, but it takes a lot to push out all this um, connection we have with this material world. Even though such a short life, say 30, 40, 50, 60 years is so short, but we've built up such huge attachments during that time, massive, particularly in the form of reputation and considering what is my identity, who I am. We're convinced of this identity as being rock solid. The principal fruit of the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti is to bring about the awakening of Prem in Hari Bhajan. So we're going to stop here, but I'll just read the next question. Davidas is saying, then you do admit that the divisions or angas of Hari Bhajan have some secondary results. So now we're going to discuss those secondary results and even why those results are there. So I find this really fascinating because it's so clear, but it's chipping away at the material identity in a very significant way. Who am I? Ki ami? Who am I? Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Gold Premanandi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Jaivedama ki jai, Vaishnavas ki jai, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavevacha, Patidanam Papanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.